Welcome to the FIT40 Podcast, where we take all the confusing, conflicting fitness and nutrition information and break it down so that you can live your healthiest, strongest, most energized life. I'm your host, Brian Fitzsimmons. Let's get it started. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back for another episode. Today, we've got a special guest. Marissa Roy is in the house. She's owner of PCC, that is the Permanent Change Coaching. Okay, she's got her bachelor's in neuroscience from George Mason, master's in exercise science and sports nutrition. She's a certified personal trainer, certified conditioning CSCS, certified strength and conditioning specialist. I got that same damn cert and it always trips me up too. And also a pre and postnatal coach certified through Girls Gone Strong and a top of the line cookie connoisseur. So welcome, yes. Marissa. I have no doubt that you're going to grace us with amazing info and hopefully a cookie recommendation or two.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and I'll talk about cookies as long as you want.
Awesome. I definitely have that on the agenda. That's what everybody's going to be waiting to the end for. We got to dangle that carrot.
Perfect. Open that loop now and just leave everyone hanging.
Exactly. That's how I do it here. All right. So, for everybody listening, like I met Marissa at Coaching Con, one of the biggest conferences in the entire nation. So many good coaches out there that we got to surround ourselves with. And I know Marissa's been in this game for a while, and I know that she's got like tons of great info. So let's just start from the beginning. I like knowing everybody's origin story. Like, what got you into fitness and nutrition in the first place?
Oh boy. Okay, we're going. Loaded question from the get-go. Got it. Yeah. Okay. So, well, basically what got me into it in the first place was, and I think this is really probably a common thread for a lot of coaches that I know, is just being an athlete my whole life. I was basically from roller skating in the neighborhood to playing wiffle ball in the front yard to doing like house league soccer and lacrosse and basketball and like everything. I was just constantly active, and I'm an only child. So that makes me like statistically more likely to just be insane. And also really just gave me a lot of opportunity. So I was really blessed to be able to just try everything. My parents really poured into me to be able to do all that. But eventually stumbled my way into finding volleyball, which was my first true love, I have to say. Still love the game today. Still play even to this day. But I found that depending on the team, like sometimes libero, if it was more competitive because I'm a little shorter, and sometimes I would play all around outside hitter if it was like a less competitive scene. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
That's what my girlfriend played. So it's so funny. And my best friend was a libero.
Awesome.
So, I mean, good people are liberos.
I love it. There's nothing like just getting a really solid dig off of someone who thought they were just going to, smash it in your face. So, yeah. So
I give you credit. That thing flies, especially the competitive leagues. Yeah. I can't imagine having that coming at me.
I'll say my favorite thing about returning to volleyball, which is kind of part of the story, but my favorite thing about returning to volleyball as an adult is that basically everything is co-ed. And that's way more fun when a guy is like pounding down on a women's net, thinking he's just going to, crush the ball. No one's going to touch it. It'll be an easy kill. And then you scoop that up. That is the best feeling ever. And I'm just like, yes.
Just taking souls left and right.
Yeah. So, so volleyball was the passion, the first love. And I got really serious about it. I was for a while like intent on playing in college, and with that came an interest in, well, then I should probably like do this like strength and conditioning thing that's getting popular now, and started with like kind of a little group trainer with some friends where we would do like dumbbell step ups and abs and reaction drills and that sort of thing. And then I was like, all right, nutrition's also a part of this. This trainer guy keeps telling me that I need to like drink chocolate milk or something. So like, what is he talking about? So that was kind of the door that opened into nutrition. But one big problem is that nutrition for athletes is not always very well separated from nutrition for weight loss in Google searches. So I would Google search, so how do I eat better? And what would come up for a 15-year-old on Google was a bunch of adult weight loss advice. And I didn't know any better. I didn't know the difference. So I was just like, cool, how I eat better is I eat less calories than I burn. And I, learn how to eat all these, top 10 superfoods that boost your metabolism and all this stuff. So I was basically mixing messages, right? Because I was like, on one hand, getting information about like restriction and weight loss and how to lose body fat. And on the other side, just trying to better my performance. But then it kind of intermixed to where I was like, I want abs. I want toned arms and legs. I want to look like these models that, are on the covers of these articles. So I should do that. And so that brought me into the cycle of, okay, I downloaded my fitness pal as like a mere 14-year-old, started going with those recommendations, thinking I needed to lose weight. And just for like context, like I was stick thin in high school, like the whole time. Never did I actually need to lose weight. So just for reference, but thought I did because that's what media was kind of saying. There was no other narrative. And so got into a really toxic cycle of just restricting. I was practicing volleyball, doing, P90X and Insanity DVDs. I was running long distance because I quote unquote liked it, but because it burned calories. And basically my body was telling me day in and day out, you've had enough. Go binge on the pantry because I'm starving. Like that's what my body was telling me. And I was really confused and frustrated and disappointed in myself because I would have all this willpower and excitement and energy towards my goals, but then my body was like, nah, girl, you're going to just binge on everything sweet and salty and snacky in the fridge and freezer and pantry until you feel sick. And it was just my body's natural response to starving. So, knowing what I know now, at least. So that went on for a couple years, and it really did a number on my self-confidence, my focus on my ability to focus on my goals. And I eventually, I had a great, run with high school volleyball and club and everything. But by the end of it and all of that stress on my body and my mind, I didn't want to play in college anymore. So I turned down multiple offers and said, yeah, I'm going to go into this health and fitness thing instead. I'm more passionate, more interested in figuring this shit out. So went that direction, and shortly after high school, started personal training in person, and was 18 years old. Basically had no idea what I was doing, but they trusted me to train people twice my age anyways. Don't know why, but I'm grateful for it. And about 6 months after that, saw the online thing starting to take off. This was 2016. And so I started my business with some Excel sheets, a website off of sitebuilder.com. And I just kind of said like, well, if Amanda Bucci and Lane Norton can do it, I can figure it out. And so I started, and then I just spent years and years and years honing in on my craft, getting really humbled along the way, many, many times. And eventually getting to where we are now. What is that? Over 7 years later now. And now I kind of think I know what I'm doing, and at least have some humility around it. And but I'm in a much better place with my body, and I help other women do the same.
Hell yeah. It does seem like a lot of that, like the traditional wisdom, the traditional knowledge that a lot of the ladies get in high school, like kind of sets them up for what is known as like the female triad, or like the female athlete triad.
Well, high school, or even like, I mean, a lot of women that I talk to in their 40s, 50s, 60s, this has been going on since they were 8 or 9 years old. Like,
yeah,
just what mom and dad said about nutrition too. And a lot of that is really common, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a few conversations with clients that said like their parents put them on like Atkins or like Weight Watchers when they were like not even hitting puberty. And I'm like, oh, this goes back.
Yeah. And the sad part is like the intentions there are never bad, but it's like, what a number that does on people when it's like the intentions aren't bad, but like that's all their parents knew. So that's what they were exposed to, and they grew up really messed up because of it. And so I think something probably that you and I both have in common is, how do we not only impact the people that we work with who might be, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, but also how does that then influence their kids, their grandkids, and how are we changing the narrative for the next generation?
100%. 100%. Because now, I mean, it feels like people have the enough knowledge and enough insight and enough actual raw data to be like, all right, I can make an informed decision and improve my family's health for generations.
Well, that's the goal.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Yeah,
as
we're working our way there.
Yeah, as obesity is on the rise, it's still the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I do like how you brought up like the fact that like we do both work with a good amount of women that are in that same age group, like that 40s, 50s. Like that's about
Yeah.
like a lot of the personal training environment is women in that age group. And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that we talked about before I hit that record button was how you were giving your take on menopause, and like how a lot of times we have this conversation and it's like this like voodoo thing to talk about. Like especially myself as a male trainer, like, oh, sorry, we don't go down that road. Like what do you like to do as far as like with your clients? Like, are there certain things in that age group that you're like, this seems to be working really well, or like certain like myths that you're like, we just got to bust this first?
Hmm. I mean, the general conversation around menopause, A, needs to be had, and B, the narrative needs to change, period. And so like just making that more widely known, because I think it's starting to become a thing that's less like hush hush and I'm ashamed of the fact that I'm having all these symptoms and everything, to now women are being more empowered to do something with it and about it, and that it's not just like a hopeless thing but I mean, that narrative is still there. And something I've found in general is like, and this applies to every aspect of probably what we could ever talk about, is you and I are very well versed in this. Our clients are now in the bubble of like, they understand that they can be empowered and they can take control over their health, and all of these things that we now know to be true, like sustainable habits, being flexible, all this stuff. But you take like one step outside that bubble. It's like I go talk to like my cousin's sister or something, and it's like it's not known. And so like the narrative around menopause and health in general still needs to change. And like we're talking like within the fitness industry, which is a $60 billion industry, it's like, what about outside of that? There's still people that like don't even touch, health messaging, marketing, media, anything. So what about them, and what about what they're hearing and what they're believing, right? And so the narrative around menopause is particularly one of those where it's like, essentially the current narrative is once you turn 45, 50, whatever age it is, you start having those symptoms. It's like, well, good luck. You're just going to gain weight, and you just have to accept that you're going to lose muscle and get frail and fragile and gain a bunch of body fat. And that definitely needs to change. And then you take one step into the fitness industry bubble, and then the narrative changes to, well, you just have to work harder. And so, what do women take working harder as? Is like, let me go do more fit body boot camp. Let me
Yeah.
go do more cardio. Let me eat less calories. The problem with that is that that is so counterintuitive to what the body actually needs during that time, because what menopause is you're no longer producing like 75% of your sex hormones. And so your metabolism is changing. We can't just brush it off and say it doesn't exist and you should be fine, just do everything normally. No, your metabolism is changing, and there are things that you need to adapt to. But doing more of what you've done before is not the answer, because you might have been able to get away with just eat less, move more when you were younger, if you even got away with it then. But doing more of it now is just really going to, in a lot of cases, exacerbate symptoms, make them worse, rather than taking a really balanced and evidence-based approach towards nutrition and training can actually, I've seen it like almost completely eliminate symptoms of menopause. I've seen women in their early 50s, mid 50s feel their best, and they're like, oh my god, I had no idea that like I could actually get rid of all the hot flashes and dizziness and mood swings and everything just with my nutrition. So,
Yeah.
you can flip the script to like food really is medicine. Exercise can be very healing, but you just have to be able to use it right.
Yeah. And it is pretty wild. Like I know like I'm actually just diving into like the Girls Gone Strong stuff with the pre and post natal, but I mean like the
Yeah.
stuff that they put out on menopause, it's like I know as like a trainer, we kind of get on and we're like, all right, what's that secret thing? What's that like? What am I not doing with my clients right now that I need to start doing? And then you get into the weeds of it and it's like strength train 2 to 4 times a week, eat mostly whole foods, sleep. And it's like, oh, can I have my $1,000 back? Like,
Yeah.
but in reality, it's like it's the simple things, but just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy. Like
Yeah.
especially sleep. Are there like some sleep strategies that you use with your clients that seem to be paying off big time? Because I know that's like the one big thing that people like all have trouble with across the board.
Yeah. So, well, especially in menopause too, where like now our circadian rhythm might be getting dysregulated. Like we're just like hot when we're trying to go to sleep. Like, and I'm not speaking about this just to be totally clear, because I know a lot of your audience is women, 40s and above. I'm not sitting here trying to pretend like I know what this is like. Like I don't. I am 26 years old.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like I have coached a lot of women through it, and at this point when I talk to women who are struggling with this, I have a lot of knowledge to offer, and so it's not about like needing to empathize, but just needing to understand. And so,
Mhm.
I want to go broad first, and then I'll kind of go narrow in on the sleep question, because when the thing you said really resonated with me, because I actually started doing a functional nutrition certification that has gone really deep into like gut health and hormones and a lot more on menopause too and all that fun stuff. And when I started doing that, I started looking for, okay, what's the magic secret? What's the thing? Like what don't I know here? And I was happy but also disappointed to find that again it was, are we eating mostly whole foods, are we sleeping, are we strength training 2 to 4 times per week, are we
Yeah.
managing our stress? And yes, there are more intricate details underneath each of those umbrellas, but it's like each of those are huge umbrellas that encompass so much physiology that you can have a better understanding of all the little intricate things, but like on the surface, if you're just not doing the basics, it's not going to happen for you. And so I think a lot of times as coaches and as people trying to pursue our health and our fitness goals, we often are looking for, what's the best plan, what's the magic combination of vegetables and these foods and these proteins and this and that, or what's the best training plan with the perfect rep scheme, and how can I biohack my sleep and all that bullshit.
Yep.
But the reality of it is it's not about the plan. It's about figuring out everything that's getting in the way of you executing on it. And so that's really where I focus when it's like you ask the question, like, what are my best sleep tips? My answer to that is what's getting in the way of you just executing on sleep hygiene. So, sleep hygiene, I can list out, dark room, temperature controlled, white noise, maybe weighted blanket, dump out all your thoughts before bed that are keeping you up. But it's like, okay, cool. I can tell you all those things, but A, you're not going to do them. And B, there's other dysfunctional habits getting in the way of you being able to even focus on that. And so
Yeah.
most of the time it just comes down to, what are the things getting in the way of you making the choice to better yourself in that one situation. And most of it is just primarily mental, um, deeply rooted in self-worth and self-advocacy, and building that and having a better understanding of our own thoughts and how those govern then our behaviors. So
Yeah.
we could go down the rabbit hole. We don't have to. Up to you.
Oh no, it's cool. I mean, I know at least with my clients, one of the biggest things, and if we could just like go back like 100 years, it'd make life so much simpler. If we could just get rid of this thing. And for
Yeah.
anybody who's not watching this, I'm holding up my cell phone because that seems to be a gigantic source of one, just stress in general, And two, it really messes with your sleep beforehand. Like if you're watching a screen right before shutting your eyes, not ideal.
Yeah.
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 But like you said, there's a million other things that are like gigantic nails in the tire for a lot of people. Really just comes down to figuring out what they are.
I think for most people, it's really just not having a strong awareness of their thoughts and how their thoughts then influence their emotions and then how those emotions then influence their actions. So, for example, we have 60,000 plus thoughts a day.
Mm-hmm.
More than 80% are negative. And that's just the reality
Yep.
of it. And so the problem is that most people take a thought and then assign meaning to it that doesn't necessarily need to be true. So, for example, if I took a bite of a cookie, we'll talk about cookies here, right? So, if I
Nothing
took
too
a
sick.
bite of a cookie and I was like, a lot of thoughts could come from that. I could say, wow, that's really yummy. I really like chocolate. Cookies are delicious. Or I could think, um, oh my gosh, this is a bad food. This is going to put me off my diet. You know, this is unhealthy. And then all the thoughts that come from that, like I'm off my diet. Um, I'm being unhealthy. I'm a bad person for eating this. Like, what kind of like we assign so much meaning to something that, one person could eat a cookie and think this is delicious, this is awesome, and then I'm moving on with my life. And another person could eat the cookie and like just totally spiral. So I used to be that person who would eat the cookie and spiral and then binge on everything else in the pantry. Why does that happen? Because we're assigning meaning to it and we're not stopping to just ask ourselves the question, like, is that thought actually true? Or like, did I just make that meaning up? And am I stressing over literally something that could be nothing? And so the power comes in that question, just asking yourself, is that true? And if you say no, then like, cool, you just change the narrative. You can now move on with your life, do something different. And therefore your actions change, right? Because if you think, well, yeah, that's true, I'm a bad person, I ate the cookie, I'm off my diet, it's like, okay, well, then you're going to start feeling shame and guilt and all these other emotions that will flood over you. And then what are you going to do? Go binge on the pantry. Versus if you said, no, that's not true, I'm still on the plan, I just had a bite of a cookie and I'm going to move on. And then we're empowered in our decisions to then take more productive actions. And this cycle happens over and over and over and over and over again, 60,000 plus times a day, every day. And so, like, the biggest advice I have to anyone is like, most plans that you could like generate off of Chat GPT will work. Like, hey,
Yep.
Chat GPT, go give me a meal plan for 1,600 calories with 120 grams of protein, and give me a grocery list for it, and just get the plan out of the way. Training plan, nutrition. I'm not saying that's the best way to go about it. You should probably hire a coach, but like, let's say that's all you had, that would be fine. But it's about every time you come up against a thought that is not moving you towards following that plan, you have to actually question it. And so you have to have mindfulness around what's going on up here and how is it just completely stopping me in my tracks. Because most people's biggest problem is not knowledge, it's not resources, it's not knowing it. My best example is like, Brian, if I gave every single one of your clients $1,000 each and said, go clear out your pantry and your fridge and go buy stuff that's going to move you towards your goals, most people would come back with a fridge full of whole nutrient dense foods, unprocessed stuff, healthy fats, lean proteins, fruits and vegetables. It's not a lack of knowledge, right? It's just
Yeah.
like what's getting in the way. It's our self-sabotage. And so, yeah, that's something I've been super passionate about lately. So I don't even know how I got here, but I just had to say it.
No, I'm glad you did because honestly, like that seems to be the trend, like with all the really amazing coaches that keep coming on, is everybody touches on mindfulness, and it's because that shit makes a difference. Like that's
Yeah.
the stuff that like makes or breaks like good coaches and ineffective coaches. Because
Yeah.
that's like what coaching is like getting into the mindset, getting into the actions that are coming from that mindset and the beliefs that people have surrounding whatever they're doing. And I
Yeah.
mean, it really does seem like the main thing that people need to think about when they're getting healthier, trying to get more fit, isn't I got to get the perfect plan, I got to get this. It's how do I figure out what I am doing, like you said, to self sabotage. And then when you fix that, it's off to the races. son of a bitch.
Oh no.
Uh,
Oh, he's
can you
back.
see me? Yeah, sorry about
Yes.
that.
You froze a little bit. The last thing I heard you say was separates good coaches from, mediocre, and
Yeah,
then it kind of cut off.
gotcha. Yeah, I'll just pick it up from there. And again, I'll have to go in and edit this damn Wi-Fi. Um, but it just seems like that when people get inside their head a little bit and figure out why they believe what they believe, and that's why they do what they do, and you can get it at the source, then that's where the
Yeah.
real difference is made.
That's like literally where the magic happens. And like I hate using the word because we're like, oh, looking for the magic pill, the magic thing. But it's like that. If there's any magic, it's like the magic of taking control of your own thoughts, or at least being able to like sort through them well enough that like you are not just subject to kind of just living passively of like things just happen to you, and you're doing things and you don't know why. Like that is just true misery. Like,
Yeah. I've actually heard, I don't know, I forget where I heard it, but somebody said there are some people that truly don't live with an inner monologue. And I'm just like, how? Like nobody
yeah.
has like that thought, like they're having a conversation with themselves. And I guess there are just some people that like don't have that ability. And it really takes a lot of effort for a lot of people because they get caught up in the daily, I got to do this, got to pick up the kids, got to get groceries, got to do this. And they don't never take a second to check in with themselves.
Yeah. Well, would you say that they don't have the ability, or they just haven't learned how?
I would say there's probably a very, very small percentage that really just don't have the ability, but the majority of people just need to learn.
What makes you say that though?
What's that?
That there's a small percentage of people that don't have the ability.
Oh, because I hate absolutes. I'm always like, there's room for a little bit. There's got to be that little subsection that has some people that just genuinely are missing that part of their brain.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess I'd be curious to know like what subsection of people that really is. And like,
Yeah.
I'm sure it must be some kind of a disability, because I
Oh,
think,
100%.
yeah, because I think that like for everyone listening to this, like I would never want someone to walk away from this feeling disempowered of like, oh, I can't, I'm just one of those people. I
Yeah,
don't know what my inner monologue is. Because I think everyone listening here, I mean, if you're interested in this stuff at all, like you definitely have the ability to change that narrative.
absolutely. And it comes down to not having that like snowflake mentality. It's like none of us are like super duper special, like in the fact that like we are 100% that 1% all the time. Like
Yeah.
the majority of things that we're talking about will work for almost everybody listening right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard when the narrative is I'm broken and I am broken beyond repair and I'm different than everyone else and no one can fix me and nothing can fix me. It's a hard narrative to be in and to get out of. So
Oh yeah.
I've definitely, you know, I've definitely encountered folks like that, worked with people like that, and it's a bigger bridge to cross, but that doesn't mean that it's not still a bridge.
Yeah. We just got to get some Carol Dweck in their lives, give them that mindset book and start opening up the possibilities. I know I was just talking with somebody and they were talking about it was actually Steph Fusnick from Coaching Con. She was one of
Yeah.
the and she was talking about like switching the narrative to I do this or I am this type of person to I tend to do, and it's like that
Hmm.
little switch, like that little change in that mental narrative makes such a difference.
Yeah, or saying like, for example, I work with a lot of perfectionists and people pleasers, or
Hmm.
self-identified perfectionists and people pleasers. So the first thing that we have them do is, instead of continuing to call themselves that, because then you're going to behave as such, we ask them to just change it to, in the past, I've had these tendencies, but now I'm working on, X, Y, and Z, putting myself first more, not being a people pleaser, um, being okay with good enough, that sort of thing.
Love that. That's huge. Now, when you do that with your people, is that like individual basis, or do you have them do it regularly? Like, if somebody listening right now is like, "I want to do that," is it like a weekly thing, a monthly thing?
It's kind of along the same principle of mindfulness, right? So like
Hmm.
anytime you catch yourself saying that to yourself, thinking that to yourself, that's when you do it. So it's not like a structured thing. If you feel like you'd benefit from doing it like every so often, that's great. But like, honestly, I'm really adamant about just like starting to tune into yourself. And like when you see that come up or when you say that, then starting to change that narrative. But what I will say is like, we have like community office hours a couple times a week. And if I hear someone say that like out loud, I just stop them right there and I just say, hey, we're going to rephrase that. What do we need to say instead? And I'm so annoying in particular with words like that, but I'm like, it's for you. It's not for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of people like that's what coaching is. Like that's what they need is like everybody says accountability all the time where it's like I just need to be held accountable. And people think that it's just the workouts and just the nutrition, but that's accountability right there. Having somebody to
Yeah.
call you on your bullshit.
It's what I do. It's what I do. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to be said about that statement of like people think that it's just workouts, it's just nutrition or whatever. Like I was saying earlier, right? You can have Chat GPT give you something half decent at this point. Like it's really
Yeah.
not about that. And I think it's more about relationships and like it comes down to like we build trust with people to the point where they trust us enough to be in their corner and they're actually open and willing to listen when I'm like, hey, you shouldn't say that about yourself. And like, if it was a total stranger on the street, they'd be like, who the fuck do you think you are? But like, this
Yeah.
is someone that we've built a relationship with that we're there to better their lives. So, yeah.
Yeah, and if it's Chat GPT or an app saying this is bad or gives you like a red bar or something, people are like, screw this. Like
Yeah.
it's just not the same as having that connection to a person.
Yeah, absolutely. And like where you can then insert like nuance and like details and things that like depend on certain things versus just like a black and white
Yeah.
plan.
Do people get annoyed when they're like they hear Marissa for the 10th time say, "Well, it depends."
Well, I always like to say that if you're listening to a practitioner in any sort of space, especially health and fitness, and they don't answer a question that's starting with "it depends," then you should definitely run in the opposite direction. But you should also be very aware of the fact that they should also tell you what it depends on. Just leaving it
Yes.
at "it depends" is kind of a scapegoat too. So,
Yeah.
like, what does it depend on? Does it depend on your age? Does it depend on, and I will say, like, the spoiler alert is that it usually depends on like you and what your goals are and what's feasible for you and what you're willing to do and not willing to do and where your mindset is versus anything external. So a lot of times if you're ever finding yourself, here's like a quick heuristic, like if you ever find yourself asking the question like what's the best blank, or ab workout, diet, meal for this, protein shake, whatever, the answer is it depends on, and then insert the blank for something dependent on you, not external brands or circumstances or those sorts of things.
Exactly, exactly. Because if people talk in absolutes, it's like a gigantic. I mean, being in the industry, like we've seen that, we've heard that so many times, and then we have somebody like smart, like say Lane Norton, or like somebody else, like put up something bashing them because they cite research or whatever, and it's like, okay, so if somebody doesn't give context and say in this situation or whatever, it's like you can pretty much assume they're trying to push a narrative.
Yeah. And well, and the thing is that we're all trying to push a narrative. I have a narrative I'm trying to push. I just think
Yeah.
it's the right one. And that I'm willing to be wrong, right? And so I think
Yeah.
we're all trying to push a narrative, but like who's trying to push a narrative for the sake of being right versus the sake of helping other people and actually figuring out what's best for people. Because everyone, and even myself, has like an intrinsic bias towards things, and there's no best one way or the other. But that's again why people buy coaches, not
Yep.
coaching. Like it's like someone's going to buy into whatever I have because of the way that I approach and view things and that they resonate with it versus you, who maybe were similar in some ways but also different in others. So people are going to work with you because of certain ways that you approach things or do things or say things as
Yep.
well.
Yep. And that's also why, like, I know you've probably had a few of these too, where you get people in the DMs that are like just price shopping. It's like, what's your price? What's your price? What's your price? And it's like, they're not on the right track here. We gotta have a discussion.
Yeah, it's hard, but a lot of times I'll just respond to that question with like, are you shopping based on price or are you shopping based on value or connection? Because like I'm happy to chat with you, see if we vibe, but like if you just want me to send you a number, I mean I can do that, but it's not going to help you.
Yeah. I mean, I just started telling people like, listen, if it's a price thing, get an app. Just get an app. You'll save yourself a whole lot of money, but you're not going to get the results.
Yeah, and you're not going to save yourself any time at
No,
all.
absolutely
Just
not.
many more months and years
Yeah,
throwing stabs in the dark.
exactly. But before we get down that rabbit hole, I'm going to pull us out and get to the important
Sure.
stuff, like cookies. So,
Perfect.
what is like? I dipped out early at Coaching Con when we were going to Insomnia, and I was like, "What's everybody's obsession with the cookies here?" But now I'm like, okay, I guess it is a very big deal. So I got to ask, what's the best cookie you've had, and what is like the generic one that you always go to?
Oh man. The best cookie that I've ever had. Um of recent memory, there's a place nearby me. I'm in North Carolina, by the way, called Milk Bread. I think it's a chain. I'm not sure.
Milk
But
bread.
they have really good cookies because they are like super just classic chocolate chip. I'm not fancy. That's it every time. But they got the sea salt, like the flaky sea salt on it. That's the best. But the go-to, I mean, like Insomnia was great when we were out in Phoenix because it's like in every big city. So I am definitely a fan there. Um, and just like Toll House, like if you need to make them at home, never fails.
Never.
And there's one grocery store near me that is has the best like bakery cookies that we always get. But something about me that you should know is that I pretty much have a cookie almost every night of my life. Like I actually eat dessert every single day, and it's something that I preach to our clients and uh, think is a great strategy for actually losing weight sustainably. But yeah, so that's kind of where the obsession came from. And my wedding cake was also a cookie tower rather than a cake. So
Solid choice.
there's that.
That might have to go down in the notepad that me and my girlfriend keep, like just observing what other people did, and it's like, all right, we're
Oh,
gonna do
it's
that.
so good. Because people actually eat it and it's so
Yeah,
cheap. You just buy like 120 cookies and you just like stack it up like a
that
spiral, and it was
that
all
sounds so
gone.
good.
It was
Oh,
all gone. And I mean, if you want to go like bougie with it, you could get like a milk fountain or something to go with it. But we just
S-
did the tower.
I've seen the what is it, the chocolate syrup tower, and I don't see that going well. Like the
No,
nice
yeah.
clothes and all that, little splatter risk. No, can't do that.
Yeah. I also had a friend who did a donut and coffee bar, but instead of coffee creamer, they had like Bailey's. So that was super fun. There was just donuts and like baked like breakfast pastries in that way. That was also a really good time.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of that, like I'm not a coffee drinker at all, but I have been to my best friend had espresso martinis at his wedding, and I was like, I'm hooked. These things are so good.
That is awesome. Yeah.
But I saw you a little reaction there when I said I'm not much of a coffee drinker.
Yeah. I don't know if we can be friends.
I'll just hit
I love
delete.
coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I know so many people are like so gung ho about it, but I don't know. I think it's kind of like those people that have beer too early and they think it's gross. That happened to me with coffee. I drank it too soon, tried to copy my dad, and then from that point on, just hated it.
But was it like Folgers? Like,
Yeah, it was like, yeah, like it was Folgers or whatever the other one. I think it was actually Folgers. Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, that's a little different, but it is what it is. You kind of have that like aversion to it. I had that. I mean, I have that with like beer, like actual beer, because like the running joke in my family is that my dad would, like, when I was a baby, like, just take beer foam off his drink and, like, have me, like, taste it, and I'd be like, ugh, I don't like that. And then, like, all growing up, my parents were always just like, here, you want a sip? I'd be like, no, that's gross. And then, like, that's just been the narrative, and I just don't really
Yeah.
drink, and I just don't really like alcohol.
See,
So
we gotta shift that narrative. We gotta go back about 20 minutes and like really shift our language around beer now.
yeah, well, I will do that if you do the same with coffee.
All right. I guess I will challenge my beliefs on coffee. But
Yeah, a
I
good espresso could be a little
yeah.
different. I mean, if you like the espresso martini, you're one step
I
of the way there.
I got my girlfriend an espresso maker for Christmas, and it's possibly the best gift I've ever gotten. So it's
Yep,
used every day, so maybe that's how I start. Maybe that's where it begins.
I think so.
Yeah. But I know we've covered so much, and I know that like this is jam packed. We went all in on so many different things, but I got to ask you one more thing, because
Sure.
this is like the most important thing I ask every guest on the show. And I
Okay.
know people that have been listening for a little bit know where I'm going with this. So this is going to tell us a lot about Marissa right now.
All right.
What is your favorite movie and why?
Oh my God. God damn it. This is going to tell you way too much about me. Um,
I'm excited.
okay, I have to pick between two things. It's so cheesy. Um, I'm gonna have to say it's probably High School Musical 3.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. 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 And why
Yeah, this is
is
why I ask
because
why.
and why is because, well, number one, I guess a fun fact about me is that, like, I absolutely love to sing, but not really for like lyrics, but for like vocals and learning like harmonization. And like, if you didn't know this, High School Musical has a lot of harmonization in it. And I basically like self-taught like singing and harmonization skills and that sort of stuff
Mhm.
through watching the High School Musicals, like other like musicals and stuff like that. So that's part of it, was like having something to sing along with. It's not just, and maybe this is, oh God, maybe this is, I'm realizing something about myself. Um, I don't really love watching movies. I don't do it very often. Like, I would much rather watch a TV show that like you can have shorter clips of, or
Yeah.
just not watch TV at all. And I think part of it is because it doesn't feel productive to sit in front of a TV for 2.5 hours. And so if I'm singing along to it, I'm doing something.
There you go.
And so that is part of it. And then also it's just like a super nostalgia. I mean, it was like the like king movie of the time. Like, it was, I was like in like 6th grade at the time, I think, or 5th grade when it came out in theaters. And I remember like getting the like um bucket of popcorn with like all their faces on it, and I was with like all my best friends. And yeah, it was just a great movie. And
Yeah.
it's just such a feel good, like, so cheesy. And there's all these like reels and memes coming out now where it's like High School Musical but realistic, and it's like so funny to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, that is one thing of our generation that everybody kind of got on board with for a brief moment of time, and some
Yeah.
people stayed on longer than others. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I 100% saw the first and the second.
Yeah. But not
Yeah,
the
I don't know.
third?
I don't know. I can't confidently
Wow.
say the third. I probably did, but I cannot confidently say that.
I watched the third recently at my husband's, at my in-laws, and he didn't believe that I knew every word of every song in the movie. And so we watched the whole thing, and in front of his parents, I just sang every word to every song. And beforehand, I'd be like, "So do you want me to like sing Zac Efron's like vocals or like Gabriella's vocals? Because I could do both. Which one do you want to hear?" Um, like, it's
I
that
I've
deep.
got
It's,
range.
yeah, it's like, it's a problem, but it's a fun time.
Well, that is a good fun fact to know. Because
Yeah.
I definitely, I've heard a lot of really like out there suggestions and favorites, and I think that one takes the cake. Like that's like
Really?
the one that I was not expecting, because I'm totally expecting people to say like Step Brothers, or like go old school and say Godfather, or like something like a really like big movie. But when you said High School Musical 3, I was like, damn, okay, we got a new one now.
Yeah. Yeah. The one it was kind of up against was 17 again. But basically, when I was like, I don't know how old I was. I must have been 10 years old. We had like this like flip open, like imagine a laptop, but it's just a DVD player. And it was
Oh, I had one
probably
of those,
like,
or not
yeah, like
DVD
yay
player,
big.
but or yeah, the one that like would pop
Yeah.
open. Yeah.
Yeah, so like we didn't have like a car with like the TV built into it, so we had one of those, and like we would go to like my grandparents really frequently, and so I had two DVDs that I owned, and it was High School Musical 3 and 17 again, and it was like put one in, watch the whole thing, take it out, put the other in, watch the whole thing, take it out, and it was like that, and like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, those three
Hmm.
were like the constant rotation. So I've seen those movies each like many a times.
That is what I should probably start asking, is like, what was your childhood rotation of movies? Because like mine
It's
was
like
all
those
the
three.
mine was all the Austin Powers movies, and
Oh my gosh.
the Karate Kid. It was just like
Oh,
when on a loop all the time.
that's awesome. I actually only recently watched all of the old Karate Kid movies for the first time this past year,
Yeah.
and they're amazing. And it's because of Cobra Kai coming out and like
Yep.
all the actors. And I watched that, and my husband was like, "So yeah, don't you see how it's so cool? How like?" And I was like, "I haven't seen them," and he was like, "That's unacceptable. We're watching them now."
Yeah. See, I honestly had never seen the third one that includes the guy what's his name? The one that that's the enemy that becomes the friend, Chosen. Like I had
Yeah.
no idea who he was in Cobra Kai, and I'm like, "Oh crap, like I watched the
Oh.
whole season. I got to go and see what this is about."
Yeah, yeah, it's good stuff. I love like the whole world of it now.
Yeah.
So I'm glad I got caught up. But that's really cool.
Yeah. Did you see Miguel is the Blue Beetle in Marvel now?
No, I did
Yep.
not.
Guys
And
making moves.
I was gonna say, I feel like people's answer to your question would also be like some Marvel movie like Iron Man
Yeah.
or Avengers Endgame or something like that, which would like if I had to like make my pick sound normal, I would have gone in that direction. But
Yeah.
but I decided to just be totally honest today.
Hey, I appreciate the honesty, because that's the best stuff there is. I love it. But we are coming up on our time, because I know you and me both got calls to hop on to. So I really appreciate you spending in like basically an entire hour with us, gracing us with your knowledge and providing a really good mindset for everything that we talked about. And I hope that everybody takes like a lot of what we were discussing and applies it as soon as possible. Even if it's just one thing, pick that one thing. And you know what? Take a screenshot right now, put it on Instagram, and tell us what your one thing is, and tag me and Marissa in it, and we'll be happy to
Yeah.
reply and put you on our stuff. So yeah, thank you again for coming on. And where can the people find you if they want to see more?
Yeah, thank you for having me. This has been awesome. So you can probably just find me on Instagram. It's the easiest. So it's just Marissa Roy Fitness, 1 R, 2 S's in the Marissa. And yeah, I'm pretty active there, and you can pretty much find anything else that I'm on from that platform.
Awesome. Awesome. And I'll make sure to put it in the show notes so you guys don't have to go searching. You can just scroll down and click. So again, thank you, everybody. Marissa for being here, everybody for listening, and have an amazing rest of your week. See you later, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode and you're a new listener, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss another episode. And if you're a returning listener, I would love your feedback. If you could take 2 seconds to just leave a quick review on iTunes or Spotify and rate the show, that would be greatly appreciated. So thank you in advance, and have a great rest of your week.